What happens when you take two of the same mountain bike and upgrade them with completely different parts? One with top of the line upgrades and the other with cheap, affordable parts. Do expensive upgrades make a bike that much better? Of course. Real quick, I gotta give credit to Donut Media for the inspiration on this series, and also Pinkbike for their series, but I'm gonna be doing it a little bit different. This is Chad, and he's the guy that's always bugging me to upgrade my bike with the expensive stuff. Status and image mean everything to him. Yup, if the bike isn't at least $6,000 stock, is it even a real bike? Yeah, of course it is. I'm gonna try to finally prove that lower mid-tier parts are just as good as top-of-the-line upgrades. I can tell you right now, they aren't. And top-of-the-line mountain bike parts are always worth the extra cost. Well, I guess we'll find out. So let's talk about the ground rules. Both Chad and I will be starting with identical bikes. All other parts we'll be purchasing ourselves, no sponsored parts at all. On the high bike, Chad will have an unlimited budget. Unlimited? Yes! While my bike, the low bike, will be limited to $2,000 in upgrades for the entire series. And I'll be able to wheel and deal on the used market to try to score some pretty awesome deals. But no crappy questionable parts, and everything must be an upgrade for the low bike. Every used part is garbage. I think you're gonna be surprised. Now I'm gonna go build up these bikes. Chad, you coming? I stopped listening at unlimited budget. Ooh, Fox 34. This is a 2022 Polygon Siskiyou D5, an entry-level 120mm travel full suspension mountain bike that Bikes Online was nice enough to provide for me and Chad for this experiment. The cool thing is that these D5s have almost identical geometry to my main ride, the Siskiyou D5. So I know with the right upgrades, this thing will rip. While it's a good starter full suspension, for an experienced rider, there's a lot to be desired. First off, this bike doesn't have a through axle front or rear, and upgrades may or may not be limited. I've heard some people say that quick release frames are obsolete, but I disagree. Totally obsolete. One is no dropper post, which is expected for a bike that retails for $1,200. Another issue is the 2x drivetrain, which means there's a front derailleur. Mountain biking has moved away from these drivetrains because they tend to have a lot of chain slap. Plus the rear derailleur doesn't have a clutch, so I'm predicting a drop chain or two when we start getting into the rough stuff. Two big positives on this bike is the tapered head tube, which means Chad over there can pretty much put on whatever fork he wants. Another is that I'm seeing a pretty big gap between the back tire and the chainstay, so I'm almost certain a 29-inch wheel can fit. So Chad hasn't seen the bikes yet. Let's go show him. All right, Chad, open your eyes. Oh, heck no, I am not riding those. Dude, come on, you're such a snob. I only ride full carbon, and it's gotta be a Canyon, a Trek, a Specialized, Santa Cruz. Don't you know what aluminum is? Okay, what? Aluminum is made out of beer cans, so you're riding a beer can. All right, what if I give you $100? Ooh, money. All right, I'll do it, but not until I have a dropper post. All right, well, it looks like I'm going solo for these baseline tests. This is the Saga Test Loop 2.0, but this new loop has two climbs with way more technical features, and it has a pretty steep technical downhill. This should definitely push the stock D5 to its limits. During the first climb, I could tell that the bike was much heavier than I'm used to. And everything was going pretty good, and the shifting was actually surprisingly responsive. I even set a PR. And then on the first summit, I keep hitting this front derailleur shifter when I want to drop my seat post. Oh, I miss not having a dropper. On the first downhill is when I noticed the big time chain slap, followed by thudding front and rear shocks. And unfortunately, both front and rear shocks don't have rebound adjustments, so I was in for a bumpy ride. It was on the second uphill that I noticed that I didn't have great traction. And I'm not entirely sure if that's because of the rear shock or the tires. And the front tire always wanted to break away from me. Across the line, I logged a time of 9 minutes and 13 seconds. Chad, that's a pretty good time, right? So this Siskiyou D5, I'd say handled the blues and greens pretty well, and I'm definitely impressed by one of the cheapest full suspensions on the market. Oh look, the D5's on sale for $9.99. Nice, but when it got to the blacks, I noticed its limitations, and I'd say this is a pretty good starter bike, and it got me riding on the trail, which is the most important part. But a quick note, just to catch up the D5 to the D7, I believe would cost more than $800, and you'd lose the rear through axle. What is that, dude? How much did you spend?